Not all that many people have ever actually played a game from the Earthbound/Mother series, but anybody who has will tell you that there's nothing quite like it, even though there've been a lot of games that tried to be. However, the reason why most never got around to playing them is not because the series is super obscure or anything like that. In fact, there's actually a lot of people who'd very much like to give them a try. But despite all the easy money that can be made from just copy and pasting these 20-year-old games over to the Switch, Nintendo just doesn't seem to want to do it. So sit back in Mr. Bungle's rudest chair and allow me, YouTube's strongest astronaut, Cameron all one word, to tell you why Nintendo's being so weird about the Earthbound trilogy on the Switch. Okay, so Nintendo being weird about the Mother franchise isn't a new concept by any means. You see, it all started back in the NES's heyday when Nintendo went out of their way to localize the entire first game into English, only to decide not to release it after all. Apparently the reason for this is because the game needed the more expensive battery cartridges, and the N boys didn't think it was worth doing for a game in a genre that wasn't nearly as popular outside of Japan, especially that late in the NES's life cycle. If I'm being honest, I can't really say that I blame them for that, since most people can be really weird about buying games on consoles that recently became last gen, although I guess nobody really knew that was a thing back then. Thankfully, the above-average-sized den came to their senses for the second game, though, because Earthbound was finally able to get out of Japan for all the world to see, and, well, the truth is that nobody really cared about it whatsoever. Personally, I had no idea this game even existed at the time it came out, and I was a pretty big fan of Nintendo at the time, so I'd imagine that there were probably plenty others like me who didn't get the memo either. However, once the Super Smash Bros. Series started picking up steam, more and more people started wondering who the frig NES was and wanted to give the game a try for themselves. And as if NES wasn't enough to raise questions, Super Smash Bros. Brawl introduced another character, Lucas, from Mother 3, a game that still hasn't been released outside of Japan at the time of this recording. But despite the fact that the Wii had just about every notable first-party Super Nintendo game ever made, Earthbound was never an option, and to this day, I've got no idea why. According to an English localizer, Nintendo didn't realize the magnitude of the game's popularity and didn't see it as a priority. But, I mean, it was already given a rating by the ESRB at the time, and it would have only taken them like 23 seconds to put it up for sale, so if they could copy and paste friggin' Pilot Wings of all things, then why not a game people were actually asking for like Earthbound? I always used to hear things like there were copyright issues or whatever, but, like, I can't imagine what type of content in the game could have possibly given Nintendo any legal troubles. And you know what? Neither can Nintendo, cause eventually after years of increasing curiosity towards the franchise, Earthbound finally saw the light of day on the Virtual Console. And as if that wasn't cool enough, they also decided to dust the first game off that they translated 2 decades earlier and put that up as well, so you'd think that all these newer fans would be able to satisfy their curiosity once and for all. Unfortunately though, both of these were released on the Wii U's Virtual Console of all things, which was a console that not very many people owned or even knew about its existence, so naturally there weren't very many people who actually got a chance to play these games. The second game on the Super Nintendo did come to the 3DS's online service, which a hell of a lot more people owned, but the problem with that was that it was only playable on the new 3DS models, so again, there were only so many people who had it as an option. Then finally, we've got the Nintendo Switch. It took about 2 years to let us play NES games, and then another whole year for Super Nintendo games, but as of this recording, there's still no way to play any of the Mother games on the Switch, and I think that's a real shame, because with the console's popularity, I think now's the time to go all out with the Mother franchise. Like, I know that the brains of the series, Shigesato Itoi, said he was all done with the franchise, so a new game's completely out of the question at this point. I mean, after all, a Mother game without him would be like a Metal Gear Solid game without Hideo Kojima. It's literally impossible for anybody else to make it right. And even if Itoi changed his mind, though, the guy's like 200 years old at this point anyway, so I think it's safe to say that the Mother franchise is finished. And if you ask me, knowing that there's never going to be another Mother game again makes it all the more frustrating that Nintendo won't just put the games on the Switch's online service and localize Mother 3 once and for all. As for the reason why Nintendo changed their minds when it comes to letting people play Mother games that are already translated, though, I honestly think at this point they're actually trying to make us wait for as long as possible before capitalizing on the franchise's popularity before they actually sell the games rather than just putting them on the Switch's online service for free. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that anybody at Nintendo honestly thinks that the Mother franchise is going to sell like 10 million copies or anything like that, but like, the amount of work that it'd take to put these games on the Switch is virtually non-existent, so if the idea is to put them on the Switch's online service for free, then what the frig are they waiting for? Watch them put it up right after I upload this video just to spite me, which if it happens, I'll be happy, so go ahead and make fun of me in the comments if you want, I guess. But I really don't think that's gonna happen, cause now that Nintendo knows how much everybody loves Earthbound, there's no way they're just gonna give those games away for free. Well, I mean, I guess it's not free, so for $20 a year, but nobody's buying the Switch's online service to rent the retro games, they just want to play Smash and Splatoon online. So they'd basically be giving the Earthbound games away for free. Nintendo can milk the Mother franchise for new games, and I'm sure that they would, but since they can't, their only option in the milk department is to get the most out of the old games that require little to no work for them to sell. And if you still need proof that Nintendo's gonna try to sell them rather than just give them away for free on the online service, then just look at how much they cost right now on the Wii U. All the other Super Nintendo games on the Wii U only cost $8, but Earthbound's $10 outside of Japan, not because there really were any rights issues or anything like that, but because Nintendo knows how much people want them. And I suppose you could also say, what the frig's Nintendo waiting for when it comes to selling these games on the Switch, but I think they're looking at these games as free stock somebody gave them in, or just waiting for the right time to sell and make the most out of them. Most people would say that if Nintendo were going to sell these games, then it'd be better to just release them on the Switch ASAP to make the most out of it, but judging by their track record lately, I think it's only a matter of time before the Mother franchise gets the limited edition treatment. The fact that Nintendo finally translated the original Fire Emblem game into English decades later proves that they can localize these games anytime they want to. I mean, after all, if random fans could do it for free in their spare time, then obviously a billion-dollar company like Nintendo could do it for a game like Mother 3 in 5 minutes, especially if there's money involved. Now that the limited edition method's proven to be successful, I can't imagine that Nintendo's not going to do the same thing for the Mother franchise. A lot of people think that Mother 3 would be too controversial in today's environment, but if Terry Crews is demanding that the game be localized, then of course Nintendo's going to listen. I just think that if they're going to translate something as big as Mother 3, then they're not going to just want to put it on the eShop for $10 and call it a day. I mean, they didn't make a physical for Fire Emblem, even though they did but didn't. But nobody ever really asked for that game in the first place, whereas Mother 3 would be a much bigger deal, so I think that it'd definitely get a limited edition physical, and I'd even go one step further and say that I wouldn't be too surprised if they threw the first 2 games on there as well. After all, with the Switch's online service offering NES and Super Nintendo games for free-ish, selling 2 of the most wanted games separately on the eShop would be the biggest gut punch ever, especially when most people would rather just emulate them if they haven't already. Even as a hardcore Mother fan, I can tell you right now that I definitely wouldn't buy a digital copy, but a physical on the other hand, I honestly don't think I could resist that. I mean, I think it's stupid that Nintendo's doing the whole limited edition gimmick as often as they are, but like, I still cave every time they do it, and I suppose every game that's ever been made has been or is limited edition if you think about it. It's just that these ones are even more limited, I guess. I don't know, at least it's what I keep telling myself so I can sleep at night after rewarding Nintendo for their frustrating behavior anyway. Limited release aside though, I really hope my deductions turn out to be correct though, because physicals for Earthbound and the Super Nintendo are expensive as ass, and I already bought the first 2 games on the Wii U even though I'd already played them before, just so I could kinda sorta put a tip into the jar to support one of my all-time favorite franchises. Plus, in addition to having owned a bootleg of the first game before the English version ever came to the Wii U, I still have my bootleg of Mother 3, so honestly, I've got no idea to own it digitally on the Switch. Especially when the fan translation on the cartridge is probably closer to the original dialogue than Nintendo's official localization is gonna be. But seeing as how there's never gonna be a new Mother game, it would be nice to own the entire trilogy in one nice little package, because I definitely plan on playing these games again someday. But anyway, that's all for today though. If you liked this video, then you should check out my video about why Earthbound 64 is never gonna happen. If you'll excuse me though, I gotta go train for my big T-ball game coming up in a few days. Later!
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty, thank you for your support.